Councillor Robert Alden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And some interesting contributions there. It's particularly interesting when you look at the Labour amendment, and Councillor Cotton touched on it, talking about that issue of obviously the concierge service would have to be paid for, and it might impact on tenants therefore having to pay an additional charge. I do wonder if Councillor Cotton realises that the council didn't remove the concierge charge when it got rid of the concierge service. It turned it to a nighttime security charge. Tenants pay £11.44. So tenants are already paying to have proper security on their estates and have been ever since that service was removed some 7 years ago. And I'll give you a quote from Edington Local, which did a story actually about another aspect of the charges. It was a sheltered housing scheme where the council still charged the residents for sheltered housing when they stopped providing sheltered housing. And this is a young mother, I quote, living in Stanley's Tower, explained, "We pay £11.44 a week for night security, despite the council removing all of the cameras in the block and the intercom calls going straight to our flat after a certain time instead of going through the concierge." And this is the issue. That concierge service provided support for those vulnerable tenants in the block who really actually needed that additional comfort from the security it was provided. And that point about removing the cameras, it's actually worse than that. What the council did was they went along, cameras in the block, they switched them off. You could think, leave it as a dummy camera. People might still think there's a camera there. No, the council didn't want anyone to think there might be a camera there. They drilled metal plates over the cameras, so anyone going in knew there was no cameras there. Not even letting them be left as dummy cameras to help try and keep tenants safe. So I appreciate the Labour amendment trying to suggest there's a cost to all of this, and of course there is, but tenants are still paying for proper security, and that is what they deserve. And when you go around some of the blocks, and I'll talk some examples from my ward, but I'm sure other councillors have it as well, and Councillor Moore's touched on some of those issues in Edington. When you go around the Abbeyfields estate, there are issues which weren't there when we had the concierge there. Because issues like doors getting propped open, that then allowed drug dealers in, and serious antisocial behaviour didn't happen. Because the concierge was on site and able to go around, when he saw on a camera doors open, shut it. Really simple solution to causing really serious social issues. And that's why it's so important, actually, the council really does bring back this service. And it's not the only example. There are more I could talk about. The other aspects of the amendment, of the motion, that also I think really worth looking at, and we raised this at Cabinet before, is the issue of using the antisocial behaviour data to now look at expanding the selective licensing scheme. At the time that was introduced, a very thin version of all the data that could be used under the law to determine what wards would be eligible for selective licensing was chosen to be used. At the time, the answer given was because the council didn't have that data. The council now has collected that data. So it really is vital. Again, actually, we've got the power to be able to request a change to that scheme for a wider area. Now we have the data, we should do that piece of work. And then on the public space protection orders, Lord Mayor, we heard Councillor Cotton talk about he couldn't put them in where there isn't police support. Of course, what we've also heard from years in Erdington when we were raising it, and about Moseley today, is the council couldn't put them in when there was police support. I mean, the Erdington police had to go through the process of doing 2 lots of data collection, valuable police time, because the council delayed so long. That's police time which could have been spent on the street, wasted, because the council didn't deal with the first lot of evidence they were given. So that process really does need improving and streamlining, and making sure that when the current public space protection orders expire, they don't require 3 years gap again to get a replacement one in. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.